Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
If you're navigating, or maybe helping someone navigate, the whole competitive university admissions scene, well, you know the pressure is just intense. And there's this belief, it's pretty common, maybe even comforting, that the usual high school guidance, the checklist they give you, that it has all the answers. But today, our mission really is to dig into why that generalized advice often doesn't cut it. Especially if you're aiming for those top-tier schools, the really competitive programs, it might actually be holding you back. We want to uncover the specific strategies, the positioning you need when, frankly, the applicant pool is just overflowing with qualified people.
Yeah, and we're starting with something that might sound a bit harsh, maybe challenging for high-achieving students. It's this, that generic advice, even when it's well-intentioned, it doesn't just waste your time. It can actively hurt your chances if you're aiming for the very top. The big trap, the one that gets ambitious students every single year, is that simple instruction. Just trust the process your school provides. It sounds safe, but it's often misleading for elite goals.
Okay, let's unpack that right away. Because, yeah, it sounds harsh, but it points to a real systemic issue, doesn't it? Why is the standard advice so often generic?
We probably need to look at the actual job description, the training, and honestly, the workload of a typical school counselor.
It really boils down to institutional goals versus your individual goals. Counselors, typically, they're trained to help students, graduate, manage credits, apply to some college, any college, often. It's about getting the basics covered administratively. Right. And the numbers involved, they're just huge. I mean, you hear about counselors handling caseloads of what, 300, maybe 400 students?
Exactly, sometimes even more.
So when you're dealing with that kind of volume, trying to craft a truly personalized strategy for getting into, I don't know, MIT's engineering program, it becomes almost impossible, right? You can't exactly sit down and deep dive into niche admission stats for every single ambitious student.
That's the core disconnect. The counselor's job is optimized for, let's call it broad access. Helping the most students possible make some kind of transition after high school. It's about safety for the largest number. But you, the student aiming high, you're optimizing for precision, for competitive advantage. You need a sharp strategy for maybe just one or two spots in a super selective program.
So your goal needs this, like razor-sharp focus.
Uh-huh.
While the guidance system is built for sort of broad-stroke safety, that's the misalignment high performers really need to get their heads around.
Precisely. Recognizing that disconnect is the first step to overcoming it.
Okay, so if that's the structural reality, how does this mismatch then lead to what you call the danger of mediocrity? That sounds serious. It kind of links to that pervasive attitude, doesn't it? That feeling that above average is good enough. I heard this story recently. It really nails this point. There was a student aiming for top engineering schools, right? Taking AP physics. She was super stressed because she had like a 92, just shy of a solid A. She went to her teacher for advice. And the teacher, who actually had a PhD, though apparently in geography, not physics, but still,
Okay.
listened to her worries and basically said, look, a B is above average. Don't stress so much. You're doing fine.
Oof, yeah, that moment right there, that well-meaning, localized encouragement, that's exactly what can derail a top student. Because that thinking above average is fine is the absolute opposite of what's needed for elite admissions.
Huh?
In that world, above average often puts you in the bottom half of the applicant pool they seriously consider.
Wow. So fine is basically not fine at all.
Not if you're aiming for the top 1% or 5%. The key takeaway for students aiming that high is encouragement without understanding the global competitive reality can lead straight to complacency. General experience isn't enough. You need strategic precision.
Okay, that makes sense. So if just being above average is risky, we absolutely have to tackle the biggest piece of generic advice out there, the well-rounded student myth. Is it still true? Do admissions officers really want someone in 7 clubs, 2 sports, plays an instrument, all that stuff?
No, absolutely not. That myth is seriously outdated and quite misleading. Admissions committees aren't actually looking for 100 students who are just okay at everything. They're trying to build a balanced class.
Balanced class. Okay, how to?
By picking maybe 100 specialists, each one bringing deep excellence in their own specific area. The balance comes from the diversity of those deep skills, not from everyone having the same surface-level activities.
So it's about a class full of different kinds of experts, not a class full of generalists.
Exactly. We often call this finding your spike. That's the strategic goal for the student. You need to become one of those specialists. That means diving deep into something you're passionate about, showing real commitment, developing actual insight and expertise, not just, safely checking off boxes on a generic resume.
Right, the spike concept.
Mhm.
Hang on, if everyone starts trying to develop a spike, doesn't that just become the new generic? How do you make sure your spike is, like, authentic and actually deep?
It's a really crucial question, and it gets to the heart of what a spike truly is. It's not just another activity. It's got to be proof. Proof of intellectual curiosity, maybe even contribution in a specific field. Let's compare two hypothetical students. It makes the difference pretty clear.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So imagine student A follows all the standard advice, takes, say, 5 APs, good grades, joins 7 clubs, key club, Stuco, maybe debate, plays a sport, maybe JV level, goes to one of those general summer camps at a university, holds a couple of standard officer roles, solid student, right?
Yeah.
Academically strong. But you look at the profile, and it's like 100 others. It's generic.
Completely generic, even if impressive on paper in isolation.
Okay, now student B, same 5 APs, similar grades, but they focus their energy differently. Let's say they got really into computational science early on. So instead of 7 clubs, they maybe spent hundreds of hours seriously building a research project, maybe using public health data, and it leads to something tangible, like presenting a poster at a regional science fair or symposium.
Okay, getting specific now.
Yeah, and maybe they also started a small, really focused mentorship group for younger kids interested in coding using some innovative peer teaching method they actually designed themselves, not just joining, but creating.
Right. And there's the difference. It's commitment translated into actual contribution or demonstrated expertise. Student B stands out. Why? Because they poured their time and energy into a specific passion and have proof, tangible evidence of their expertise, their unique insight. Student A, even with the same grades, followed the checklist advice focused on just looking busy and well-rounded, not on demonstrating substantive skill or passion.
So the depth of that spike, that unique story, that's what really sells the student's potential.
Absolutely. It's the narrative that convinces an elite university you'll actually contribute something unique to their campus, not just fill a seat.
And often focusing on that kind of strategic framing, which, channels like the study craft really emphasize for students.
Yeah, that's the difference maker.
It really is. Generic advice often ends with that comforting pat on the back. Oh, you'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
But like we said, fine. Especially for hyper-competitive programs like comp sci or physics at top schools, functionally means rejected.
Yeah. The landscape now demands narratives that showcase your unique contribution, your insight. Not just a list of activities. They want to see depth because they're looking for future contributors, future leaders in their fields.
Okay, let's get real about the numbers then. Because this is where that idea of needing to stand out becomes, well, undeniable. The source material is pretty blunt about this. Top schools aren't struggling to find good applicants.
No, they're absolutely drowning in them.
Drowning in qualified applicants.
That concept, statistical abundance, is so critical for students to understand. Think about it. A top university gets, say, 50,000 applications for 2,000 spots, and maybe 25,000 of those applicants have perfect or near perfect grades and test scores. 25,000.
That's staggering.
So suddenly, having a 3.8 GPA, which is objectively great, isn't enough. Not when the baseline pool includes thousands of kids with 4.0s, plus research, plus international awards, plus amazing personal projects.
So the bar isn't just good anymore. Even very good.
Yeah.
It's
It's exceptional, way above that. If you're applying to the top 1% of universities globally, you basically need to show you're performing like the top 1% of global talent in something.
And that statistical reality just wipes out most of the traditionally well-rounded applicants, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It forces you to differentiate strategically.
It absolutely does. And it underscores why you need a calculated strategy. Relying on vague encouragement, hoping your good enough profile cuts it. That's how you end up in the huge pile of qualified but generic applicants who get waitlisted or denied.
Especially for those super competitive majors.
Exactly. Comp sci, engineering, physics. You need clear positioning. You need that spike. And it requires technical precision in your application, not just optimism.
Okay, speaking of technical precision, let's tackle one of the trickiest strategic calls for top applicants right now. Standardized testing. Even if you have a fantastic profile, this whole test optional thing is confusing. Should you submit your SAT or ACT scores or not?
Oh, this is a minefield where generic advice just completely falls apart. The portal might say test optional, right? But in reality, for a truly competitive applicant aiming high, it's rarely strategically optional. You can't just guess. You need a clear, data-driven rule here.
A data rule. Okay, I'm listening. What's the calculation?
Here's the strategic way to think about it. You have to compare your score, your SAT or ACT score, against the university's own reported data. Specifically, look up the 75th percentile score for the most recent admitted class at that specific university. You can usually find this on their admissions website or through public data sets.
Okay, the 75th percentile. Why not just the average, like the 50th percentile? If I'm above average, isn't that good?
You'd think so, but remember statistical abundance. If you're already strong everywhere else, grades, classes, that spike we talked about, your test score, needs to add something. It needs to actively strengthen your case, not just meet the middle. If your score falls below the 50th percentile, the median for admitted students at that school, you should seriously consider going test optional, because that score might actually pull your overall profile down compared to their typical admits.
Okay, that makes sense. Below the median, it might hurt.
Right. But if your score hits, or ideally is above the 75th percentile for that specific university,
Yeah, then you send it.
then submitting it becomes a powerful strategic move. It gives the admissions officer another clear data point showing you're not just capable, you're exceptional, even when compared to the top quarter of the students they admitted last year.
So it confirms you're in their top tier, statistically.
Exactly. And nailing that calculation, making that informed decision, can genuinely be the difference between getting waitlisted and getting accepted. It's that level of strategic detail.
Wow. That completely reframes test optional. It's not just an out for students who didn't test well. It's a strategic positioning tool for those who did.
Precisely. It's about understanding how that data point impacts your competitiveness within their specific applicant pool.
Okay, so this really brings us back to the core idea, doesn't it? Success in these elite admissions games is less about just being good enough overall, and much more about being positioned well enough strategically. It sounds like the vast majority of applicants, even strong ones, are kind of playing the game wrong.
They often are. They're following that surface level advice, focusing on looking busy, looking well-rounded, instead of demonstrating real substantive expertise and unique insight.
And then, when they don't get the results they hoped for.
They often conclude, oh, I just wasn't good enough. But the strategic analysis, looking at how these decisions are actually made, suggests something different. It suggests they likely weren't positioned well enough to stand out from that massive pool of other talented, qualified applicants. Their strategy, or lack thereof, was the issue, not necessarily their intrinsic ability.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. If these admissions officers are really looking for specialists to build that balanced, diverse class, what area of genuine curiosity or existing excellence in your own life could you develop into that undeniable spike? Something that shows not just effort, not just time spent, but real deep insight, maybe even a contribution that's uniquely yours.
Thinking about that and then acting on it with focus and strategy, that seems to be the essential path forward for any student with truly high ambitions today.